Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Michelle here from happyhealthyher.com. And today's compassionate chat is going to be a really practical one. It's meant to give you some really helpful tools for raising your self-love and for sending more love out into the world. And we all know that what we need, probably more than anything these days, is more love. In our previous chats, we talked about rejection, and then we talked about the antidote to rejection, which was validation. Today, we're going to talk about something even more foundational, and that is self-love. When you learn to self-love and validate yourself, you need far less validation from others, and you basically become rejection proof. If you can love yourself and raise your vibrations, the negative energy of other people just sort of bounces right off you. You're just not as affected by it. First, I really want to thank all my new subscribers and anyone who has liked or commented on my videos. It is so helpful to me. It's really hard for me to put myself out there, and your support means the world to me, and it makes it a lot easier for me to sort of put this work out, which I think is really important, and I hope it will be helpful for you. So I've talked about the self-love tools I'm about to share in all of my work, actually. So in my book, Online Dating for Sensitive Women, I talk about this as a foundation for getting yourself set for dating. In Free from Narcissists, I talk about this. That's my course where I talk about healing from narcissists, and I use these tools along with many others to help heal the wounds that were created by narcissistic people in our lives. And I also give this information away for free in my book, 33 Ways to Add More Joy to Your Life. So if you're not able to afford any of my other products or services, please do get my free guide. I do not spam you. I mean, you give me your email so just so you can get the PDF file, but I rarely send out emails. So it really is genuinely a free gift from my heart to yours. And I think it will help you to raise the joy in your life, which is a huge piece of actually raising the love in your life. So I want to start off first by making it very clear that when you focus on self-love, it is not selfish. A lot of us get very turned off by the idea of self-love because it sounds selfish. But the truth is, when you raise your own vibration, when you start to get more loving within yourself, you naturally radiate it out into the world. And when we heal ourselves, we are also naturally healing everyone around us and all of the world. So doing this kind of work, even like exclusively from your own home, like if you're someone like me who's kind of in hibernation space lately, this work is still really powerful in like helping the collective, because you're raising your vibration, you're increasing your love, and that spreads outward. So the first thing I want to talk about is a super simple practice. It's just hand over your heart. Now, as soon as you do this, you're basically refocusing your energy into your heart chakra. If you happen to be an empath or very sensitive like I am, you may be wired where your heart chakra and your energies are just naturally giving. They're just naturally heading out into the world, which is lovely, but it can leave you very drained. It can also be a beacon for people who are narcissistic or energy vampires to sort of latch on and take from you. So learning to sort of seal your own love in and sending some towards yourself really helps. And having your hand over your heart actually sort of helps to remind us to do this. I found I started doing this instinctively when I was working in hospice. I was a communications manager for a year in a hospice center, and people would come to me and they would tell me stories about patients, and I would get very moved emotionally. Not sad tears, happy tears, because the beauty of hospice is just the people who show up in that work are such amazing souls, and there's so much love, and there's just so much beauty in even the process of dying. and I would find myself moved to tears a lot. And instinctively, I kept finding that I would put my hand on my heart. And what I've ultimately realized is some of it was a little bit of a protection for myself to try to seal that energy back in. One thing that makes me really interested, that really intrigues me about this is, you may recognize this as something we do if you are a United States citizen, as a reverence to our country. When we stand for the national anthem, we put our hand over our heart. And this is such a beautiful collective act of love and support for all of our country. Like, I mean, on a symbolic level, it's actually quite meaningful. Something that I will do sometimes if I'm feeling particularly out of sorts, I might actually state out loud, I am love, I am loved. Those statements are true for you always. And I think that's really important, that we recognize that you are always loved and you are always a source of love. Super simple one. So the second practice is something called Ho'oponopono, and it's a Hawaiian practice, and that word actually means correction. And so this is actually a practice that's considered an act of forgiveness, and you will understand that when we go over the particular phrases that you will recite when you're doing Ho'oponopono. It is not just about forgiveness, though, I will say. I see it as raising your positive vibrations and then actually spreading love. So just quick background, I first learned about this practice when I was completing my master's degree in integrative healing, and that was over 12 years ago. So I've actually been using this for 12 years, and I can tell you it really does work. The way this practice originated, in the story that I learned, was through a doctor in Hawaii. He was working in a high security prison with some of like the roughest criminals. And so a lot of these people were in like solitary confinement. There was a lot of unrest in the prison. And so this poor doctor is thinking, how am I going to help these patients when I can't even get in a room with them because they were too dangerous? So what he started to do is he had all of their patient files in his office, and he would pray over the files using the statements I'm about to share with you. And what he found is they were starting to heal. Their behavior started to become more calm, more peaceful. There weren't as many issues in the prison, and so he found that this was actually helping the energy of the prisoners and also the collective in the prison. And so the phrases are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Now you would probably say, these are very high vibrational statements. These are all very powerful, very loving statements. And any one of them, if you were to repeat them, would raise your vibration. But together as a string, they're even more powerful. And my little personal story of the first time I ever used this, I had work done in my house. I had wanted quartz countertops for a really long time. My home had melamine, I'm not sure what the phrase is, but it's like that particle board. It's terrible. And as for counters, it's hard to keep clean. They were really not great. So we were having them replaced with quartz, which is a high energy stone, and I was so excited about it. And so we had this really great guy come to do the install, and I was chatting with him, as I always do if I have a worker in my home, and offered him snacks, offered him water. We were just being cordial. And once he was completed putting the countertop in, he said to me, what do you want me to do with your old countertops? And I was like, ooh, I didn't even think about that. Well, I guess you could take them. Can you take them? If you can take them, that would be fine. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll take them. So he leaves, and I'm thrilled about the new countertops. But all of a sudden, the phone rings about an hour later, and it's the owner of the company who did the countertops. And I don't know if I'd ever even met him, but he was like livid. And he starts yelling at me and he says, "You coerced my installer to take your countertop and I need to charge you $300 or it was a lot. It was like, I was like, what? And I was like, no, I said, I didn't coerce him. He asked me. And oh my gosh, like, no, I'm not going to pay that. That's kind of outrageous. And so, it's back and forth. And I finally hung up with him and I was so like exasperated. I was like, what just happened? And I had to run errands. So my mind was like spinning. I was just like, why was this guy so angry? And I was feeling really terrible. So I started to repeat. I was sending this person, again, I don't think I've ever met him, but what you're doing when you're actually sending it out to the universe is you're actually sending it to their higher self. And so my higher self is talking to his higher self and I'm saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I just kept saying this on a loop while I was running my errands. And I got home and on my answering machine was a completely different message. This man had a completely different tone. He had left a message and he said, "I'm really sorry. I talked to the installer. I know this was not your fault. I didn't mean to overreact. I hope you love your countertops. You will not be getting a bill from me. Thanks. Sorry for the inconvenience." Completely different energy, completely shifted from where he had been. And I was just stunned. I couldn't help but think, okay, this stuff works. So another time I was going to an event with someone who tended to be pretty challenging to me. And so I started thinking of that person while I was getting ready for the event. And I started sending them the energy. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Over and over again, thinking of this person. So I walk into the event and this person comes running over to me and gives me a big hug. And they said, "Oh my God, I missed you so much. I haven't seen you in so long. I'm so glad you're here." And I was like floored because they had never acted like that around me. And so again, these are two examples, very clear, that really felt like this actually works. And I know of other friends who have done this and have felt the energy raise in their town. You can do it in any capacity toward your neighborhood. You can do it towards your neighbors. You can do it to your friends, and especially toward people who are challenging, because that's the work. It's easy to say I love you to people that you genuinely love. It's pretty hard to say those things to people who give us conflict. So one of the things too I will say about Ho'oponopono, if any one of these phrases are hard for you to say, that's a clear message to you that you want to work on those particular elements. So like if I'm sorry is hard for you, that's going to teach you that, okay, you have a little bit of trouble apologizing or taking accountability. And that's something that, we all could probably work on. If please forgive me is hard for you, well, then forgiveness is a piece that probably needs a little bit more of your attention. If thank you is hard, then gratitude is a practice that you want to start working on and focusing on. And if I love you is difficult, well, then again, we need to do self-love activities and love activities in general. So any one of these things really can sort of trigger to us if we have some work that needs to be done. Just as a personal aside, a lot of us who've been through difficult relationships, challenging, abusive situations, like myself in narcissistic abuse, please forgive me is actually really hard only because I have a hard time forgiving myself for the things I have allowed myself to put up with. So when I say please forgive me, a lot of times what's happening is it's unearthing the wound that I have in forgiving my own self. And so I've had to do a lot of work around that. And this might be something that comes up for you, and that's why I explain it that way. So the third practice is called metta meditation, and it's actually quite similar to Ho'oponopono. It's also called loving kindness meditation, and it's a Buddhist practice, although of course you don't have to be Buddhist, but that's how it originated. And you can find actual guided metta meditations on YouTube just by Googling metta, which is METTA, and then meditation, or loving kindness meditation. The app Calm also has some, but it's really, really easy to do by yourself. It's just a series of 4 phrases, and you can say really whatever resonates best with you. I actually keep a little note of my phrases in my meditation space because my memory is terrible. But the phrases that I use that have been really helpful are: may you be safe, may you be well, may you be happy, may you live with ease. So the way this works is you start by sending those energies to yourself. So I would say to myself, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be happy, may I live with ease. And then you can either do a broad, like your entire town, and then you say my whole town, may everyone be safe, may everyone be well, may everyone live with ease. Or you can do the state, the country, the world. You can progressively do this, or you can actually mention particular people in your life. That I find really helpful. So, like for example, I will say names of my family members. Each one: may you be safe, may you be well, may you be happy, may you live with ease. So you are saying this a lot. If you have a large family or a lot of friends, you're saying it a lot. One of the things I did when I was going through my divorce is I went through my in-laws because, divorce is really difficult, and you don't necessarily want to be disconnecting from all your in-laws. And I felt a lot of guilt around that, especially around my nieces and nephews. So I used this with them a lot, naming them, and also some of the in-laws that were really difficult. Like my ex, I still struggled because I still had great love for him. And so I did this practice sending that love out because, love is love. And so even if you have a disconnect, it's still a beautiful way to just extend your energy. And how you're able to do this with the people who challenge you the most is the real work. And so when you get good at sending love to people who have harmed you, and then that's when you're really sort of advancing in your growth. It takes a lot of maturity actually to be able to send love to people who are aggravating you, but it's the work. It's very good work, and it's very powerful. So the 4th piece is an affirmation practice. And this is something, again, I started in my divorce. I don't remember who I learned this from, but I'm so grateful because it has been a really wonderful way to boost my self-esteem and my confidence. And I use this little Wonder Woman notebook, which is getting totally filled up at this point. I don't use this practice as much anymore because I don't need to. But when I needed it, what I did was I'd open the notebook, and then I would just write out I am, and then all the traits that I am. So things like I am loving, I am kind, I am thoughtful, I am generous, I am funny, I am intelligent, I'm silly, I'm a good friend, I'm a good cat mama, I'm a dedicated worker, I am confident, I am lovable, I am unique, on and on and on. All the things. Now, if you're having trouble coming up with things to say about yourself, ask your most trusted, most loved friends. And I promise you, they will give you a whole slew. But this is really, really powerful to sit down and actually think about the things that we have of value. And you most definitely have a lot of them. We all do. We all have these amazing, unique gifts and skills that we bring to the world, and very rarely do we acknowledge them. And when you write them down and you say them out loud, you are actually speaking to your subconscious. as well as your conscious mind. And this is a hard thing to do, actually. It's hard to get access to our subconscious mind. And if you have been through any type of narcissistic abuse, the narcissist is in your subconscious mind. They have implanted all these terrible things where you think you're bad. You think you're not worthy. You think you're not funny. You think you're not attractive because they've planted all these seeds. So what you're trying to do is get rid of, unearth all that junk, replace it with the truth, replace it with kindness and positive statements. And I promise you, if you do this consistently, you're going to shift your energy and you're going to feel a lot better about yourself. So the fifth thing is not so much a practice as just a tool. And it is using crystals. So you can see I'm wearing a green aventurine pendant. Green and pink crystals actually support our heart chakra, which is the source of our love. So it's great to have a pendant like this, right on your heart chakra, or you can meditate with crystals. So one of my favorites, my favorite green crystal is malachite. This is so pretty. And this is really powerful for the heart chakra. And you can meditate with it actually on your heart chakra. You can just hold it. You can keep it in your pocket if you need a burst of love and support and confidence. Another biggie that's great is rose quartz. This is one of my favorite pieces because it just happens to look like a heart. Rose quartz is one of the least expensive and the most abundant crystals that you can find. You can sometimes find them in your yard. My mom has these great stones in her front yard, she lives in Florida, and I always find rose quartz, which is so magical to me. So I have this little bag I've amassed of rose quartz. It's a great stone for giving you sort of a feeling of compassion, and I put it on my heart, and it always makes me feel better. Heart-shaped crystals in general are also like a great way to remind you of love. You'll notice too, I'm wearing a green sweater. Color and the things we surround ourselves with are really powerful. And green, like I said, is the color of the heart chakra. So is pink. And if those are colors that you enjoy, put them in your space, because even just having beautiful, pretty, happy things in your space are going to bolster your vibrations, going to bring you more joy, and actually help you to nurture more love in your life. I literally say I fall in love with my life every day because I have all these wonderful things in my space that I love and spark joy for me. So that is really, really important. So do take care of yourself with the things that feel good to you. So another point I just want to make that is really interesting, that the nature of this video, I had already kind of planned to do this video this week, but I realized today astrologically that this is a particularly pertinent time to be doing self-love activities. I even picked the self-acceptance card. I pick 3 cards every day, and this is one of the oracle decks. And self-acceptance this card says, nothing is more exhausting than endlessly working on yourself. When you offer your whole being fully to love, self-acceptance arises spontaneously. May I rest in our oneness, dear divine. So this is sort of a card of release, actually. And the only way you can let self-love in is if you accept it. So self-acceptance is a big piece of this process. Allowing yourself to see your worth and allowing yourself to see how powerful these kinds of practices can be. So astrologically, though, where I was going with this was that today, Chiron, which is an asteroid / comet. There's some debate as to what it actually is, but it's a body that represents the wounded healer in our cosmos. And it actually is the representation of our greatest wounds. So Chiron is meeting up with Mercury, which is the planet of communication, in the sign of Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. And you may realize that yesterday was the start of our new astrological year as the sun moved into Aries. So this is a lot of Aries energy, a lot of self energy. Aries represents the self. So if Chiron represents our wounds and Chiron is in Aries, it's actually triggering our ability to see our self-worth, and to sort of focus on that and the need for self-love. Um, Chiron in general has really been activated this year, because it's been bumping up against the North Node, which is also in Aries. And that represents our life purpose and sort of the direction we're heading in. So collectively, we are all kind of dealing right now with sort of the question and the wound of our own self and how we show up in the self, how we show up in the world. Just as an interesting side note, I have my natal Chiron in Aries. That means that I was born with Chiron in Aries. And um, Chiron is usually in a sign for around 4 years. So I am 49. I turn 50 in August. Anyone around my age likely also has Chiron in Aries. So you are probably having sort of the same wound that I have kind of struggled with. Um, it's very interesting because the wound of Chiron and Aries is actually very indicative of codependency. It's why we wouldn't be able to love ourselves without seeking external love, which is what a lot of people describe codependency as, is needing too much of the external, not being able to self-direct. So this is actually like an astrological reason why people might struggle with that. If you are an empath or a sensitive person, it's very likely that you struggle with this as well. And it could be very well that Chiron is in your Aries as well. What I have seen is that my greatest wound, as I've shared in other videos, is that I have been through narcissistic abuse over and over and over again. Multiple narcissistic relationships. And when I look at my Chiron in Aries, I'm like, well, of course. It was sort of almost like predestined. And many will say it's almost karmic. It's as though I needed to learn that lesson so that I can ultimately heal myself and then help others heal themselves as well. So it's just super interesting to me to be able to drill back and see that the universe is always giving us signs, and astrology is such a fantastic tool. I actually see it as just another one of tools to help to love myself, because when I understand my natal chart, when I started to understand all the pieces of it, I could have greater love for myself. I could see why I had the challenges I had and how to work with them. So if this is interesting to you, if you've never had your natal chart done, I actually offer that as a service, and I will link to that below. But either way, this is the perfect day to be doing your self-love activities. And I really hope that this helped. I hope it gave you some practical tools. And as always, I wish you good health and happiness. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe as well. Thank you.